Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time, as we get to ride home with you in the afternoon. You can find us on the radio at icradio.media. That's in Christradio.media, which is also a Fox News affiliate. You can also find us on television, Channel 182, Charter Communications, and Abundant Television Syndicated, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. You can also find us on all the social media sites. I haven't done TikTok yet. I don't know. I may do that one. I don't know. I have Linda Hansen with me right now. Okay, now you're one of my mentors. Do I need to do TikTok or not?
Personally, I would say no, because I know a lot about TikTok and the Chinese Communist Party and their spying through TikTok. So I am not a TikTok fan. I understand that a lot of people use TikTok, but I am not a TikTok fan. So that's my opinion. Others might have other opinions, but that's mine.
Well, your opinion is just like my husband's opinion. So I've been ready to go jump on the bandwagon. And his whole thing is like, what you just said. And then I will say, yeah, but I can say I would like to have a banana sandwich. And I promise you, on my cell phone, I will start seeing commercials or ads for bananas.
I'm probably going to see one for a banana sandwich now.
Now, how do you like your banana sandwiches? You want to just see? I'm not a mayonnaise fan.
Peanut butter.
I'm not a mayonnaise fan, but on a banana sandwich or a tomato sandwich, I want it that thick. I don't know what my deal is, but anyway. Now, Linda, we have some new watchers and some new listeners. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, for those of you who are new to hearing me, I appreciate being a regular guest on Donna's show. She does such a great job, and it's just an honor to be here. But to those of you who haven't met me before, as Donna said, Linda J. Hansen, and I have worn many hats in my life. So the biggest role that I think is the most important is I'm mom and Grammy to 6 adult kids and 6 grandkids.
She doesn't look like it, does she?
Yeah, well, and that's the biggest blessing that I have is just, next to knowing Christ, is just being able to have my husband, our family. It's just such a blessing. So, but apart from that, I've always had a calling and a heart to impact our nation for Christ and for freedom. And so if I just tell people that my goal is to know Christ and make him known and to promote freedom and liberty throughout the land. And so that's me in a nutshell, but that has encompassed everything from homeschooling to being a volunteer GOP activist to working with the pro-life movement to mentoring young people to everything in the political realm, regulatory reform, issue advocacy, coalition and grassroots development, to actually being a deputy on a major presidential campaign, Herman Cain's presidential campaign of 2012. If anyone remembers 999, we sure could use it today, but along with his wisdom. So I've had that experience, and what I do as a major thread through all of that is Prosperity 101. And that is what you see underneath my name there, Prosperity 101 LLC. You can go to my website, prosperity101.com, and see that my passion is to unleash the power of employers and employees to reclaim and preserve America. I believe that employers, I should say, are like the last frontier for helping promote freedom in America. As we've seen people come through our educational systems and they get into high school and college and they're taught all these woke ideologies and they're taught to protest, and then they're asking us to pay for their college so that they can protest in college, after college, in the workplace, and while they get a welfare check for not working. And so I'm saying, let's flip that script. And if there's 60 million plus employees employed by privately held businesses in the US, if every business owner would do one thing to help educate their employees about basic capitalist systems, like maybe even just expose them to the Bill of Rights and ask them if the person they're voting for is protecting their rights, but help them understand that if you tax something more, you get less of it. If you tax something less, you get more. I mean, these are just simple concepts. And I think employers are absolutely so well suited to share that message, because they always have a level of kind of authority. Not really. I mean, they have authority, but they can explain to employees why policy matters to paycheck. So in the midst of all that I do, that is one just recurring thread that is a part of my passion, is to get employers to talk about these issues in the workplace.
I think they should, because Phil and I have owned businesses. I've owned businesses most of my life, except one period of time, about 6 years, I worked for GTE Corporate. And that's where I handled the government and corporate accounts, because I had owned a business and I thought, well, I'm young, I'm tired of that. I'd rather work for somebody. Well, very quickly I decided I'm not really into the diversity thing. I'm just not into that kind of stuff. And I like to work. Mm-hmm. And so my husband was we both decided we were going to work for somebody else, for a while. So Phil was working for a company, and he actually got written up for not taking a break. So we were from the old school. You just work.
Yeah.
I mean, you just work until it's done.
Right.
So Phil comes in from work one day and he goes, "You're not going to believe this." And I said, "What?" He said, "I just got written up." I said, "You, Mr. I'm there way before the bosses are there and you're late leaving. I mean, you for what?" He said, for not taking a break. And that just blew my mind. I said, it's a big company, humongous company. You know who they are. Mm-hmm. And so that's when we decided, hey, we're going back to owning our own business so we can make the rules. Okay. Right. And not make silly ones, because what we found we were in. Okay. So I handled the government and the corporate accounts through GTE. Mm-hmm. I had to go to a diversity class. And I said, I love everybody. I don't care what somebody chooses for their sex life. I don't care about any of that stuff. Well, I care, but what I mean is I don't hate anyone because of the choices they choose, And I believe that if you go in jamming somebody, if they decide they're doing the wrong thing, they'll never come to you to ask, an opinion from you. So I like to handle it in a Christ-like manner. That's, that's just the way I'd rather do it. You come to me and ask me and I'll tell you. I mean, I just will do that. Right. So I told my boss, I said, look, I love everybody. What makes you think that I would hate a gay person or a lesbian? What in what I do? Because actually there were gay people who worked with us. And I said, do you see me mistreating anybody? And he said, this is required. You have to go. Mm-hmm. I don't know. You have to go.
Well, and this is one of the things we're seeing across the board. And thankfully, in some companies, this is beginning to change a little bit. Mm-hmm. We are putting pressure on as we the people and telling them enough of this nonsense, right? But we can see even more recently, I've seen many things, and it's been, really crazy since the hurricane hit, right? But with both hurricanes, we see inaction from FEMA. We see a lack of support. We see a lack of clarity and responsibility on behalf of the Democrat presidential candidate. Mm-hmm. And we see all this, and we've even seen that FEMA, their leadership, big promotion within there is the DEI hiring, DEI training. So we're not having people in charge based on whether or not they have the merit and experience and intellectual capacity to do the job. We're hiring people based on skin color or gender identity, which is, in my opinion, there's two genders, but we have a whole woke ideology. And so we're not hiring people based on whether or not they're the right people to do the jobs. And that is such a disservice to everyone. So it seems also very hypocritical to me that the same party or group, and I'm not just referring to Democrats, but if we're talking about like liberals at all, that are screaming for transvestite rights and you can't tell what a woman is. And, you ask their Supreme Court nominee what a woman is. And she's like, I can't give that answer. I'm not a biologist. It's like, excuse me, right? So
And you want to be a judge of anything.
Right. But so the same people who say that tell us we have to vote for Kamala Harris because she's a woman. And so it's like, well, wait, you can't have it both ways. You
thought we didn't know who a human, what a man and woman
and
was.
you can't judge people by the color of their skin, but you must vote for her because of the color of her skin. Mm-hmm. So I think to all citizens, we need to stop and listen to what people are saying and be able to look past the headlines and think, does that make sense? Does that even make sense? And then when they're promoting these ideologies, what are the logical outcomes of these ideologies? That's something we really have to think about.
I'm going to encourage everybody to find this book right here.
I love that book.
I love it. It's a very thin book. It's not very thick at all. For you people who don't like to read, you're actually going to love this. Common sense. So my grandmother would always say this. If something went weird, she would say, well, in the name of common sense. She would say that all the time. It was always her reaction to everything. She was so correct. I mean, so right about it. If it just doesn't make sense, you need to at least do some investigation on it before you make a decision, and to all of you folks who think, well, she's Black and she's a woman. Okay, you need to study her background.
What are her policies, right? And
core beliefs are huge.
And we look at all these woke ideologies, and like I was saying before, what are the natural outcomes? So we start mutilating children, taking them away from their parents in some states like Minnesota, where Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz is from. Okay, if you don't want your children to transition as a minor, and you're saying, could you please wait? Let's talk about this for a few years. Well, the state has the right to take away your children and put them in the court system, the protective services. This is insane. Okay. And we look at this and say, okay, what is the logical outcome of making sure we sterilize a large portion of our population? And what is the logical outcome of making these young people dependent on pharmaceutical drugs for the rest of their lives? And, what is the logical outcome for the emotional damage that is done to these young people over the course of their lives? If we don't think this affects employers and employees and productivity and a nation and everything, I mean, we are just being fools, because all of this has such long-term effects. And, that old saying, a politician thinks of the next election, but a statesman thinks of the next generation. We have to think through every one of these things like statesmen and say, what is the logical outcome of that particular policy? And then it's upon us to make sure we try to help people understand. So it's not just the social policies, it's the economic policies, it's everything. And we have to make people understand, because their own freedom is dependent on it.
Well, see, we have to go back and research things. We can't, not just what's being fed to us from the media and whatever. So I did a little bit of my own research and some studies that were done with people who couldn't figure out what gender they were and had the surgeries done. My big question was this: will they always have the desire? If they're a boy and they think they're a girl, will they always have the desire, the sexual desire? No, they don't. As a matter of fact, they have no desire, period. They're a zombie the rest of their entire lives, which also works on their mental health issues.
Yeah.
I mean,
everything.
We have to think about those things. And all the parents who are out there thinking it's cool because their kids don't know what gender they are, you're crazy yourself. Maybe that's why the kid is.
It's just a slow, steady frog in the pot of boiling water brainwashing. And, it starts so slowly. I began talking about all these issues, 40 years ago. And I was one of the early homeschoolers, one of the pioneer homeschoolers, because I could see what was happening in our school systems. It was still illegal in a lot of states. People keep fighting for that right all over, right? But apart from that, I was always actively involved studying issues and trying to help people understand how all of these policies affect their daily lives. And, one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. If you look at all the paths towards communism from every single nation, they check their things off the list. I mean, it's just one after the other. I mean, we are definitely at a tipping point right now. Our nation is at a tipping point. If the unity party, and I say that it's not just, yes, it's a Republican ticket, right? But I've always said, like, I hate the labels of R&D, to be honest, because I can think of a lot of Republicans that I just, cringe to think about what their policies are. And, you hate the term, like, why no Republicans in name only? But they are. But there are also Democrats in name only who really think more like the conservatives do, but they happen to have a D. So it's like, we need to say it's not about party, it's about policy, it's about uniting. And I love what I'm seeing come out of, everything in Trump world, because we've got Donald Trump, we've got JD Vance, we've got Vivek Ramaswamy, we have Tulsi Gabbard, and we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who I know for you and I, we're both very concerned about, holistic, integrative health, just the fact that he understands and wants to make America healthy again. I mean, this is a unity that we can all get behind. And you see people like Elon Musk and others who either haven't voted or have often been on the left, and they're coming forth saying, look, it's going to be disastrous for our nation if Trump doesn't win. We have to wake up and smell the coffee. And, this is just so important. I mean, the fact that there's been such a wide variety of people who have come in to support him, and the fact that the liberal leftists, the really radical liberal leftists, keep trying to take him out, whether it's assassination attempts, bankruptcy, lawfare, put him in jail, slander him, all these things, after all that, I'd say you want to look and say, why are they so against him? When before he ran for president, they loved him.
Oh, yeah. And this is another thing, because, and I think that President Trump speaks to the average American, okay? Because I'm just telling you, every family has that one cringe person in the family that you have to tiptoe around at Christmas and at Thanksgiving. I've got one in mind. And I'm just telling you, that person can make the holiday, they'll ruin it. They will absolutely ruin it. And that's what Trump's up against right now. So he's got this whole machine, and some rhinos who are so against that we all think about that. Everybody has that ex-wife that's like Kamala Harris. Okay, think about this. Okay, so I was just noticing this through the debate. I didn't even really listen to it. I wasn't even gonna listen to anything she said. So there she is. She's acting like a crazy ex-wife. I know my brother's got one. So she's acting like this crazy ex-wife. Everybody has to tiptoe around that one at Christmas and on Thanksgiving as well. I mean, it's in the family. Crazy man too, but I'm just talking about, she makes me think of crazy ex-wives. And it's just the way she was acting, her reaction to everything. And then at the debate between the two candidates, JD and I've tried to
Governor Walz.
him. Yeah, gosh. I so many times I'm like, please, my head is going to explode. But I was just watching his responses to JD, and it was like they went to the same training camp.
Condescending and arrogant.
Oh,
they're not authentic. Is what I think. And and there's things, I know some people, the press went crazy. They said JD Vance's beard was too masculine, too authoritative, his beard.
But it's okay to vote for her, right?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And so, but there is one question that, like, during that debate, and I thought JD Vance did a great job, okay? But during that debate, when Governor Walz was talking about, the abortion issue and how, the Democrats are so much more pro-woman because they care about a woman's right to kill her baby, right? But he's talking about the healthcare and how much they were concerned for this and things. And I wish that JD Vance, he might wish this now too, but I wish that he would have just looked at Governor Walz and said, we care about women too, but I have one question for you. Could you please define for me, what is a woman? And Governor Walz would have been on the hot seat. He would have been on the hot seat, because he can't say a woman is, a woman who has these parts and can give birth. He has to give some cockamamie woke answer, right, in order to get his base. But then people could see how ridiculous it is, because, even though people will go along with this, it's kind of like I was starting to say before, talking about these things 40 years ago and telling them, oh, if we start to define marriage differently, if we start to do this, the logical thing, remember what happened to Rome, all these things, right? It is a progression. They're called progressives. It is a progression, right? So it's a progression of the distortion of truth. And, I could grieve back in the 70s. Well, that's your truth. It's my truth. It's everybody's truth. It's like, wait, everything can't be true all at the same time. That is one thing that's true. Everything can't be true all at the same time. And so where do we find truth? Well, for me, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And his word is truth. So we need to refer back to that. And that is what's held this nation. It doesn't mean everybody has to believe exactly like we do. It doesn't mean the state is mandating religion or telling everybody they have to read their Bible every day or anything like that. But there are absolute truths. And when we start to distort those, we have chaos in society, and we can see it every day. We can just see this every single day, the chaos in our society, because we've lost sight of truth. And we have lost sight of what's important in terms of preparing the next generation to be strong, to defend their own freedom, and to understand right and wrong and truth from error. So I just, again, I'll go back to the employers. You have a lot of people in your workplace right now, and employers, I'm talking to you. You have young people and even some older people in your workplaces right now who really have no clue. They've only been fed garbage, and maybe they're seeking truth, but they're just having pablum right now. I want you to give them some, at least toddler food, right? Wake them up to new things and to the truth of what our government founding documents offer them in terms of freedom. Why America is this amazing place where people have been able to prosper and grow, and human flourishing has just expanded, not only for our nation, but across the globe. There are principles of truth that have allowed that for us, and have, really put the boundaries on us. You talk so much, so many groups talk about boundaries. You have to have good boundaries. Well, we do. You can't pour from an empty cup. We have to learn that in relationships. But yet somehow the left thinks we don't have to have any boundaries for our nation. We can just pay for every illegal immigrant that comes through. We can pay for their housing, their things. We can do all these things. We don't have to have boundaries in terms of any kind of sexual content, or, we don't have to have any boundaries, right? Well, that's not healthy. It's not healthy. And it's not how we're going to make for a strong nation. So employers, please talk to your employees. And if you are a parent, many of you are both employer and parent, please talk to your children. Don't let the world be the ones that talk to them. Talk to your children and help them understand, help them to discern. Go through the news with them and find out what's true. Don't just look at the headlines and give your opinion, but take a few extra minutes of every day to find what might be true about a story, because you will be helping your children to discern truth from error too. So there's just so much going on right now, and we have to be alert and aware and discerning, very, very discerning. So, these woke things we're talking about, they're not true. We have to.
Well, it's nowhere near true. I remember back in the 1970s when I went to high school, and so you were on the news was constantly, it's a woman's freedom, and they were pretending as if having an abortion was just a form of birth control, basically.
Right.
So.
Right.
So I was going to school, and I think I was 14. And so two of the girls I went to school with had abortions. I didn't think anything of it. I was not educated.
No.
I thought nothing of it. I thought, well, they shouldn't have done it, but it's birth control.
Yeah,
What's the difference in that and taking the pill?
Right.
That's what we were taught. And then I started doing a little research, and I was like, whoa, that's not right.
Right.
That's a baby. Because they were saying, oh, it's just a blob. You remember that? Back in the 70s.
I do. Well, and I remember at that time, my sister, that year that Roe v. Wade passed, my sister had a baby that year. And I remember seeing the ultrasound pictures, and as rudimentary as they were for, 1973, right, compared to what they have now. But I remember seeing that thinking, that is a baby. That is a baby. And then when I got married and had my first child, I remember thinking, wait, I feel like a foot under here, underneath my rib cage. I'm like, that is not my body. That is not my body.
That's that baby's body.
Yeah. And I had already really the realization of that this was a baby. But I just remember that day where I literally felt a little foot underneath my rib cage, and you could see it. You could see it clear as day that this was a foot. And I remember thinking, women have been so lied to, and I have to do everything I can to help women and the babies. But I want to say too, for all you men listening, there are probably men listening to this broadcast right now whose hearts have been broken because their girlfriend or wife or whoever aborted their child. And it's like somehow we have made this be all about the woman when we have fathers who would be more than happy to upend their lives and raise their children. They believe in life, and these fathers are hurting too. So again, what's the logical outcome of this? Okay, is it really about helping women? Maybe
population control.
Yes, it's about population control. But so then you get into, they're talking out of both sides of the mouth, because over here it's helping women. But over here it's fine to mutilate women, to do transgender surgery. Yeah. And it's also fine to put men in women's locker rooms, dormitories, crisis, domestic abuse centers, prisons, girls' elementary school locker rooms. It's okay to do that, and you're helping. No, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. We either stand for life, stand for the protection of women and girls, stand for the rights of parents, both mother and father, and stand for the things that are true and right. Or, it's just so shifting sand.
It is. And this is another thing. I don't know how you could say that's not a baby in there. Some of my friends who've become parents and grandparents, especially the grandparents, like to float that little sonogram and show everybody, that's my grandchild. You see all of that. So you can see it sucking on its thumb. You can see it's being a baby in there. It really, it's not like it was.
I could see my sixth child. I could see my sixth child sucking her thumb before I was even in maternity clothes. No one would have known I was pregnant, and I had the ultrasound, and here she is sucking her thumb, which she sucked for a long time, and now she's all grown up and wouldn't want me saying that. But this is the thing. It is a baby. But here's the thing. People can see it's a baby, and they've been so deceived, and their minds have been so brainwashed that somehow it's okay. I don't know I know I have seen the horrendous pictures of the dismembered bodies of aborted babies. I have seen that. And, it just breaks your heart. And you think, how could any person do this? And if you listen, I know liveaction.org is a great website to go to. They have a lot of resources and things, but, they've had interviews with abortionists, ex-abortionists, and like what goes on in their mind that makes it seem like it's okay. and it's money, it's this, and they're talking about cleaning out the woman's womb and making sure they got all of the arms, all of the legs, all of this. And how can, this is like Joseph Mengele stuff, For those of you who are too young to know, this refers back to World War II and the Holocaust and all the things back there. But this is just so wrong. And we see this, but there's big money. I mean, this is not just population.
Well, they're paid a lot of money for each one. And our tax dollars are paying for that.
Yes. And it's unfortunate. These are things, and I know some of your listeners are going to be, that can't be true. She's making that up. This is just a conspiracy theory. And you don't have time in like one episode to say, but I can tell you, the sale of body parts, the sale of these little organs, this is, such big
cosmetics.
Yes.
Cosmetics.
Yes. I remember years ago. And this is just such big business that, it's horrible. And then we go into, you have disregard for life in the womb. You're going to have disregard for life out of the womb.
And we wonder why there are school shootings, and we wonder why the young people are doing what, because they feel no regard for life.
They're just confused. They don't even have a sense of right and wrong. And, people who want to control have a great way to do so through our tablets, our phones, and the games kids play. A lot of times they're very targeted. So you start to look at these school shootings. You talked about that before. I mean, I was moving into how if you don't value a life in the womb, you're not going to value a life outside the womb, right? So we can look at even these post-birth abortions, otherwise known as infanticide, that are legal in some places. But then you look at the exploitation and trafficking of young children, and what is happening is horrendous. And the same people who say, oh, we care about a woman and we care about this and stuff, are the same people who think nothing of allowing little girls to be trafficked, with our tax dollars paying for it. That's another thing your listeners can go look up. And so it's like, they just speak out of both sides of their mouth. Then you start to get these kids who are so confused because there's no rock solid truth in their life. They maybe don't have parents who are supporting them. They maybe maybe they do have good parents, but they've rejected that, which happens, right? But they become vulnerable. They can become influenced. A lot of times these kids who are normal kids and just want to go play outside like every little normal boy or girl are put on ADHD drugs or something so that they can sit still in a classroom, so they can be the good little robot in the assembly line of education. But then, they end up having too much medication. It affects their ability to think, all these, it puts them in a vulnerable spot to be influenced. I mean, I know people probably think but this is a spider web of problems. It just goes out and it weaves all together. And it is good versus evil. And, if we don't stand up against it, we're going to lose the entire fabric of our society. And, we stand up against it first with prayer, like coming close to Christ and through prayer, but also being an active citizen and being involved. And, it's not political to stand up for what's right. It's not political.
And you really want to stand up for the children? This is how you stand up for the children. We're going to go to a break, but I've got to mention this one other thing. So when I've only had one son. So I had hepatitis when he was 2 years old, couldn't have any more kids. Denver liver is permanently damaged, so it could never carry another child. So, but I wanted like 4 kids at least. I mean, I really did. It wasn't in the plans, God's plan. So anyway, my grandmother said, you want to have a smart baby. Of course, back then I didn't know girl, boy, which one it was going to be. And my grandmother said, you need to start reading to the baby.
Absolutely.
And I said,
in the womb.
Now. And then she said, yes. You remember John the Baptist leaped in his womb. He knew what was going on. So you need to read to the baby. You need to sing to the baby. And if you'll read to the baby will be smart because it will be a reader. And I said, she's got to know what she's talking about. So I did. I love to read anyway. And she said, you're an avid reader. So she said, read to the baby.
Out loud.
Oh, and it happened.
Yeah.
My son carries a book with him all the time, even now. And he's like 45 years old. And it's like my grandmother was absolutely right. But when she won me over is when she said, remember John the Baptist? You remember that? And I said, oh, that's right. And he leaped in the womb just at the,
No.
And so that was absolutely right. So this stuff that to you young folks, because I was young once, and I remember thinking my grandmother was a little warped, my grandmother was right on spot. I mean, she was right on. And I'm so glad I took her advice. I'm so glad because I got a smart boy. Well, man. Let's go into a commercial break. We're going to be right back in just a minute, folks. I promise we'll be right back. Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community
Good afternoon.
College.
We are back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. That's why I have Linda Hansen with me on the show. She's a regular guest, and I'm delighted that you would be on my show. So again, thank you so much for speaking the truth. I think that's why a show like this, and nothing I do, but I think that a show like this is popular because people are so tired of just hearing a bunch of crazy nonsense. I mean, I know people who are former liberals who are actually going to be voting for Trump this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know personally. And I wanted to mention something. You mentioned FEMA. And with the tragedy that hit Asheville, North Carolina, we have friends there. And so I go to Cowboy Church. Mm-hmm. And so the guy with the American Fellowship of Cowboy Churches happens to be living in this area. And so he's in, with the directive, everything that happens to the church. And so he sent me a message, was really upset last Monday. And he said, you're not going to believe this. He said, FEMA is coming in. It's not just Cowboy churches. A lot of churches are sending food and they want to help and, water, just whatever they need. And he said, they're confiscating our water. They're confiscating everything that we have here. Now, this is a truthful guy right here, okay? He was really upset and just needed to tell somebody. So he told me.
Yeah.
And he said, but it's not just us. It's all over. And he said, I don't know what's happening. What they're supposed to be there for the people. Why would you
sell the money? They use the money to house illegals, to transport and house illegals. And this is one of the other things that's such a problem because the FEMA funds, and for those who might not know what FEMA is, Federal Emergency Management Administration, I think it is. Anyway, they just have misspent the funds. They've used it on the illegals. So at least that's what their story is, right?
Oh, but now Kamala's going to give everybody $750.
Yeah, but did you know?
I've seen right?
It's a loan. So if any of you are listening and you're thinking of taking the $750, read the fine print.
With interest, and it's high interest.
Well, I listened to some of the people on the ground. I've heard a lot of people just recording their own things. And this one man was almost in tears. He said, it's $750. Don't take it, because if you don't pay it back within a certain time, they seize your property, which is, in my opinion, the goal of the whole thing anyway, because there is a lithium mine there. So, so we have opened a lot of things in Pandora's box, on this broadcast. I mean, it's like I said, it is a spider web of things that the more you start to learn about, the more you realize, wow, we have been so deceived. And I'd like to encourage people, just speaking of that, it just makes me think of some of the videos I've seen on Walkaway. Like if you go #Walkaway or Walkaway, I think it's at walkaway.com, but you have hundreds and hundreds of stories of people who always voted Democrat. And this isn't about who you're voting for. I mean, they'll talk about it, in terms of who they're voting for, but this is more about what you believed, like what you believed by what was in the media, or what you thought because that's what your parents told you, or your sisters and brothers told you, or your coworkers told you, or the media told you. But it's like, wait, what's really happening? And we talked before about common sense and looking through the logical steps of what are outcomes of policies, right? A lot of these walkaway stories that are on this website, which I really got to recommend people go to walkaway.com or search walkaway stories, #walkaway. It's amazing the different things that have caused the light bulb to go on, where they start to look a little more suspect at different things, like saying, well, that doesn't make sense. I just remember even I had a thing inside. I'm one of those ones who has educational stuff inside my cupboard doors. So when my kids were drying dishes, or now my grandkids or something, they can, look and see all this stuff. Well, one of them was a sign that it's like, if vaccines work, why do you need the mask? If masks works, why do you need the vaccine? If masks or vaccines, why do you need 6 feet? If 6 feet works, why do you, and it was just this whole round thing. And I remember one of my grandsons.
Common sense.
I know. One of my grandsons looked and he goes, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, none of that makes sense, Grammy. It makes a lot of sense, but none of that what was on there, makes sense. And this is what we're talking about. We have to stop and look at this. And so listeners, if you feel something in your gut that you're going, whoa, there's something here that resonated with me that I don't get. It just doesn't make sense. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. It's whether it's economically, whether it's in the energy sector, whether it's in the social sector, like, parenting, kids, gender, all of that, whether it's in educational programs, emergency management. I mean, the whole thing has just become so radicalized. It's like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, this is not your father's Democrat Party. I mean, he's not. And I said before, I've been involved in politics for, 40 some years. And I've always said, you eventually have to choose where you're going to put your X on the ballot, right? But you should not be choosing just based on a label. You should be choosing by the policy. And then you should be well informed enough to know that if the labels switch, if they rebrand, you got to know enough about what brand you're voting for. And, you can have a soup label on a different can, but, it can still be a spoiled can of soup, right? So we have to know what we're voting for behind the name or the label. And it's really something. So not only do we have to look at the platforms of the parties, but we have to look at the actual actions, votes, and policies of the individuals, because we've seen time and time again people who disappoint us when they're in office. They promise this, and it's like, a bad relationship. Oh, I'll do it next time. And the next continuing budget resolution, the next thing we'll put this in the next time. And it's just like, wait, you never put that in there.
No, next time never gets here.
Next time never gets there. And so we have to be able to say, these are the people who have walked out what they're saying, and they have been bold enough to stand for it. And as we were talking before about President Trump and people, trying to destroy him, of course they are. He doesn't owe anybody anything. He doesn't have anything to hide. He's like an open book. And for I heard someone the other day, someone very dear to me, said, "Oh, what's happening is so terrible. Trump, he's just lost his mind. The man is just, it's such a shame. He's lost his mind. He's so off." And I'm thinking, are you watching him? Are you watching this man? He is a machine. He goes from event to event to event. He has assassination attempts. He's on the news. He can articulate. He doesn't need notes. He's, and do I agree with every word that ever comes out of his mouth? No. Do I agree with every word that comes out of my mouth? No. So
I just got a question though. Okay. So, if someone, let's just take it on an individual basis. So if someone just lied about you all the time, it was just nothing but a total bunch of nonsense. And it was on and on and on. If they took you to court, the judge, was crooked. The reason the judge got voted in was because he said he was going to destroy Trump.
Right.
Okay. I don't know how he handles these things as well as he does, because if I had been on a debate stage with Kamala Harris and she were looking at me the way she was looking at him, I'm talking about just that. I'm not so sure I could have restrained myself. And if everything coming out of her mouth was a lie, one after the other, she's looking at you at an obnoxious way, ongoing throughout the entire debate. I'd like to know how he handled it so well. I'm not so sure I could take all of that.
I know that his faith has grown considerably. I know people who are close to him, and while I haven't personally talked to him about his faith, and I truly believe that everybody, can say whatever they want, and the judgment of any person's heart is up to God, not up to us. So, but I know his faith has grown considerably, and especially with the assassination attempts. I mean, how could you not?
You could see a new him.
Right. And so, I feel like, I don't know, there's just times, it's like Queen Esther. She was scared to death to go before the king. Her life was in danger. But she said, if I perish, I perish. No, her uncle said, who knows if you weren't born for such a time as this? Well, I believe he was born for such a time as this. You are born for such a time as this. I am born for such a time as this. And to the listeners out there, you are born for such a time as this. Like, it isn't just Donald Trump. I mean, we can't expect one man who's bucking the establishment to save our republic. It has to be all of us, and it has to be all of us. And it can't even just be we the people. It's got to be we the people, going back to the source of that freedom, the one who gave us those freedoms to begin with, and that would be God. And along those lines, I told you that I wanted to just bring up, it was called the Million Woman March on Capitol Hill this past weekend. I was not able to attend, but I saw a beautiful, beautiful, film of it, and it was just incredible. I don't think there were 1 million people on the mall, but there were, I think they said 350,000 or more there in person.
That's a lot of people.
Over 10 million joined online.
Wow.
Over 10 million people joined at some point during the day-long event to join online and pray for America, and pray for families, and pray for the upcoming generation. And, this is so important. We talk about policies, we talk about employers talking to your employees, all of this. Yes, we want to make sure we have policies that make businesses profitable so we can provide jobs, and we can buy food and clothing and vehicles and houses and the things that we need. Well, duh, right? But there's so much more to life, and we need to think about what is not only the politics of now, but the next generation, the statesmanship of the next generation. And we have to think about, how all of this affects. So if you look back at some of the big revival things of history, you see it began with prayer movements. So it is prayer. It is prayer and devotion to truth that will actually change this country. So yes, I'll still always be involved in politics. I will always do that. My one of my grandkids said, "Grammy, we know that you're never going to stop fighting for freedom because you love us." And I that phrase is in my mind every day. And we can't stop fighting for truth, but it's about so much more than a party. But when we vote, especially we're coming up on this election, when we vote, we have to cast that vote for what is most closely aligned to the truth and policies and principles that we believe in.
Absolutely. Let's talk economy for a few minutes. So many people, and even in my neck of the woods, will say, "Oh, we've got a great economy." And I will say,
"Really?
We live in the same town. Really? It's good for you right now." I mean, really, do you do your grocery store shopping? I mean, does somebody do that? Does one of your servants do it for you? Because I'm just telling you, the very party who talks about old rich white men, you don't want them. Well, first of all, Joe Biden was an old rich white man, right?
Yeah.
And it was the very party who was saying that Trump was an old rich white man. Okay, and then the VP pick, Waltz, is an old rich white man.
Yeah.
I think so. But is it people? Yeah. It's okay to have women's feminine products in a boys' restroom. Yeah, let's do that. Let's push that Yeah. But I'm talking about everyday people like me, boots on the ground. When I go to the grocery store, I'm not looking at it like. And another thing is, I'm studying real estate big time right now. I mean, not that I want to be a realtor. I want to know about real estate. And I'm finding things. I'm hearing things. I've been talking with realtors about what's happening right now. So what's happening is young people, if they get approved for a loan, okay, first of all, the houses they're really up in price, which is good for the rich person, but it's not good for that young married couple just coming out, and we want to get married. It seems as if they're being, I don't know, socialized and maybe never owning a home.
Yeah.
Does it appear that way to you?
The globalists said it. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. We see the whole concept of 15-minute cities everywhere. We can see, it looks like, oh, that's cool. There's another apartment complex with retail things underneath and a whole little community. You start seeing this everywhere. It's like, wait a second, what's up with this? Well, then they're pushing electric cars, electric vehicles, cashless society. Okay. Ask anybody with Hurricane Helene if electric vehicles, okay, smart thermostats, or even their smartphones were very helpful when they, people were posting things like, what got me through was cash, gas, and, a drafter or something, It's like, these are things that are meant to control. And so we have to look at that and say no. And putting us all into economic downturn and economic scarcity, where we want to turn to the government, then the government is great at creating a problem and saying they'll be the solution, but they never are, right? They just create another whole problem on top of it that we have to pay for, triple. And it's insane. So speaking of government and paying for triple and having government grow to enormous, behemoth, right? I love that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are talking about having a commission to cut the size of government. Right now, you're talking about economy. We are literally going into $1 trillion of debt. Saying, well, we're paying for all that. We are paying for that through our taxes and through these bloated government organizations and policies that just have to be cut back. How many of you are listening have just been like, I give up trying to deal with the government. I mean, you just, instead of, trying to come to a better deal with your taxes because something was wrong on it, you just pay it because it's going to take 6 more months out of your life to save you $1,000.
You were right, and they were wrong.
You pay this, or I mean, it's just so annoying. You want to do anything with the government, and you're on the phone for 3 hours, and you don't even get to talk to the person you need to. So it's so annoying. But yet, just look, I mentioned Elon Musk. I mean, this week it was in the news. His rocket blasters. They, instead of dropping into the ocean, they came down and got caught. I mean, the guy's brilliant. He's so brilliant, right? This is private enterprise. If this was government, it would be we have to pay. I don't know. I can't say, but it's just ridiculous. So we can see the privatization is really what will help our economy thrive. And that's what's helped our nation thrive all along. And we can look at Argentina right now. I'm on a roll right now.
Go for it, girl.
Yeah, I know. It's privatized, right? But we cut the size and scope of our government. It would make our economy boom.
Yeah, this is what I love about small business people, because small business people are not working for the government. Well, you kind of already pay your taxes, but not really. You get to have your own mind. You're not working for a big corporation like I did, where they would either steal your ideas and pretend they had it and you didn't. That happened a lot during my tenure there. I'm just telling you, it happened a lot. It's so great to own my own business.
Yes.
I love it because it's like there's no cap.
Right.
I mean, I can just go as far as I want to go. I mean, I really can. Yeah. But if I've got the government breathing down my back and they're telling me that, no, I'm sorry, you can't make, but just this is all you can make now. This is it. Yeah. What kind of a life is that?
Well, the other thing is you're working, right? But then
I love to do
mandated income. Or the income, everybody gets the same income. That's socialism. That's bringing in, we don't.
And that's where it ties into every kid gets a trophy.
Right.
Done by design.
Right. Done by design. And so this is the thing. I mean, it takes away all incentive. And so when we can privatize, we can bring forth innovation and stuff. In Argentina right now, I started to say before, the new president in Argentina, I love the guy. I mean, he's just kind of like I don't know. He's just amazing. I don't know the word I'm thinking of, but he's just gone through. I saw a quote from him the other day that said he wants to, anything that can be privatized will be privatized. He understands that government has a purpose, but it is the private economy. It is the private entrepreneurship and enterprise that actually drives the economy. I try and tell, in fact, the course, for those of you listening, I mentioned about how I want to help employers and employees. Okay, well, I have a book. Please go to prosperity101.com, order the book. You could also get it on Amazon and things. But also on my website, I have an online course. It's a 12-lesson, very, very simple, online course that helps people understand that it is private enterprise, private business that actually funds all of government. It is business that drives the economy. Business provides the jobs for the people to pay the taxes. Business provides the jobs for the companies to pay the taxes. We can only have any government if we have private enterprise. When we have more people taking out than paying in, you have a collapsed country. And this is what we see in Venezuela, right? We've seen the total collapse. So we have to prevent that. Common sense, right?
I mean, I remember back in my old days in school, I remember the teacher actually talking about the difference between debit and credit.
Yes.
And it started making sense to me.
Yes.
Well, something, we got to go. Can you believe an hour is just flown by? Linda, thank you so much for being on the show. It's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. And if listeners want to get a hold of me, they can go to prosperity101.com and just contact me from there. Thank you.
There you go. Now, Linda, hang around. We've got to plan you for next month. But thank you guys so much for watching. You're the reason we do this. And I know you want to hear the truth. And that's why we have wonderful guests like Linda. So we'll see you later. Have a great, great rest of the day.